The dramatic and deadly 4-day siege by Islamic militants at the In Amenas gas plant in Algeria just a few weeks ago came as a shock to many. 37 foreigners, including 6 Britons and 1 UK resident, were killed. The incidents shone a light on a wider crisis, that of a new African battleground, and the current and complex fight in Mali between Tuareg rebels who want a separate state, Islamic militants allied to al-Qaeda and Malians is hitting the headlines on a daily basis. Prime Minister David Cameron said the threat in North Africa is a global one which, he said, will require a global response that is about years, even decades, rather than months. So I've spoken to experts on this issue about just how widespread they believe the crisis is, who's involved, and how they think it can be resolved. I met with Mark Saad, the newly appointed Honorary Consul to Mali in the UK, who told me about the main players and what they're fighting for.
The groups operating in the north of Mali have different aims and come from different backgrounds. The only, if you want, community-based group who was claim territorial integrity within the Malian sovereign state is what you call the MNLA, which is the Movement for the Liberation of the Azawad Territory, who are mainly Tuaregs. The second group is also a Tuareg-led, but is more fundamentalist and more inclined to be portrayed as part of the al-Qaeda umbrella, under the Qaeda umbrella, which is Ansar Din, led by Iyad Ghali, who was at some time a minister and an ambassador of Mali in Saudi Arabia. The third group is Akim, or the al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. It's splinter groups from various terrorist groups who got unified under that umbrella. And they are foreigners. They mainly foreign leadership with some local followers, but the local followers are more drawn in for money more than anything else. And the fourth one, which is the Mujao, which is a splinter of the Akim group, which is the black section of the Akim group. They are basically religious zealots who want to impose the Sharia and so forth. When Gaddafi fell, all the Tuaregs who used to be part of his army left Libya with their arms and came into Mali, and they were emboldened by their experience, by the money they have, by the modern weapon they brought with them. So the Islamist extremists took advantage of long-standing historical grievances, the tribal tensions between the Tuaregs and the Malian government on one side, then the endemic socio-economic inequality and high poverty rates in the region. So these terrorist groups were pumping money, recruiting people with the promise of a lot of money.
Opération Serval, France's recent military intervention into Mali, now means that there are around 4,000 troops in the area, pushing back rebels who've tried to take key towns and cities in Mali. They're fighting alongside home troops and those from places like Chad and Niger, with the assistance from Britain and the rest of the EU. Prime Minister David Cameron ordered the MOD to help the French take equipment out to the region and has confirmed British soldiers will help train troops, but our forces definitely won't be engaging in frontline combat. And some Islamist leaders have responded to the military intervention with vigour. King's College in London recently debated the fluid situation. Ali Soufan was one of the expert panel. He's a former member of the FBI who's written a book, The Black Banners, The Inside Story of 9/11, about his experiences of interrogating members of al-Qaeda. He spoke to us when he got back to New York about the militants' change of tactics.
There has been successes by the French and the Malians and the African troops against the extremists, But that's something that we've seen before in our successes in Afghanistan against Taliban and al-Qaeda at the very initial stages of the campaign. Now we start seeing the emergence of guerrilla warfare and guerrilla warfare tactics that's being applied, in northern Mali by the jihadists and by the extremists. I think there is a big possibility that this campaign is still at its early stages. And I think we have to be very, very careful of not declaring mission accomplished and not declaring victory. We think there's still a lot of things that need to be done.
With a problem so complex, it almost feels like it's impossible to solve. So what's the way forward? The traditional methods usually used by ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, like straightforward military intervention, won't resolve this issue alone.
If we don't find a solution, if we don't find a way to stop the flow of weapons into the hands of the Islamists, into the hands of the Tuaregs, France might have a very difficult time. ECOWAS might have a very difficult time in that region. I would really say that the facilitation of a continuous process of national conversations is what the world needs to see very quickly in Mali. And the region will be very relevant there, but it's not just a matter for the region. It's a matter for really the region, bilateral actors like France and the United Nations who need to speak with one voice and who need to find a way to exclude all the various spoilers who would continue to ship weapons into the region.
IB Times UK has been following the developments in Mali closely for the last 18 months. Our reporter Umberto Bacci told us what he knows about France's other interests.
France has a different set of interests in the region. The largest economic interest it has is in Niger. France, as we know, is a large consumer of nuclear air energy, and these nuclear plants are mainly fueled by uranium coming from Niger.
And there's also gold there?
Yeah, Mali is rich in gold, but mines are mainly in the south of the country. And then another interesting aspect is that there is this potentially huge oil deposit in the north of the country, which span from Mauritania to Algeria all across Niger, where a lot of international companies, including French Total, have won the rights to explore.
And there have also been some more damning accusations about who is actually fighting for the rebels.
Human Rights Watch made a report which said that during, let's say, the Islamist tenure of the North, a lot of children were recruited in the ranks. They were mainly used to implement the Sharia laws, which were implemented by the Islamic group in the north, and also for security patrols of the cities. But when France started its survival operation, there were reports that actually some of these child soldiers were sent on the front line, were really close to the combat.
Has Human Rights Watch got any proof of that?
It was all based on eyewitness reports. They have a lot of contacts in the area.
And in spite of French economic interests, there's also real potential for the entire situation to escalate.
The problem with these groups, they were allowed to prosper because there was a problem and they wanted a solution. They thought that the military solution will give them what they want. History proved that it did not. So you need to get these people, you want them to feel that they're part of the country, they're not left on the side.
I think what we need to do is be sure that we're containing the struggle in Mali to the framework that's being set by the international community to basically manage the threat in that area, manage the situation in that area, and prevent it from spilling over and becoming a regional and international conflict.
The widespread nature of the issue means the West does have an important part to play.
I would love to believe that we learned from our mistakes in the past, and we learned that nation building is not going to be the answer. We learned that putting the troops on the ground is not alone sufficient to solve a problem.
There's no one nation or country in the region or whether in West Africa or in North Africa, that can be secure from the challenge in Mali. It is a global challenge because of the mix of conflict, socio-economic exclusion, and radicalization. And the rest of the world, with the region, will have to find a solution that deals with the root causes of this challenge.
The Malian government is already working on a roadmap to peace. Rebels from the MNLA are talking and engaging. More international aid has been delivered to the country, all of which are signs pointing towards a peaceful, long-term solution to the intensely complex situation.